Greetings After Effects buddies, let's take a look at how to make this nice looping bolt animation. Okay. So let's start. I've got this composition here, an empty composition with a couple of things in it called bolt animation, just here. Composition settings I used. I just had it 800 by 600. Frame rate 30 or 25 is fine. 10 seconds long. Okay. And so that's my simple composition. Inside here, I've got a white solid layer. So I just did a layer, new solid. Okay, just had a white solid. Okay. And let's rename that. Okay, let's just hit the return key. I'll call that background. Always good to name your layers. And this is a shape layer, so I use the shape tool, okay, just to draw a shape. Okay, I'll just undo that. That's the one I drew earlier. There it is. I've just drawn a shape there. And I use the align tool. If you go to window, align, you see if I move this about, I want it at the top. Oh, there's a little shape there that we're going to use later. And I can use the align tool to get that just to the top of the screen at the center. That's nicely in place. Okay, so what I want to do with this line, I want to get this line coming down the screen like this. Okay, so to do that, rather than do lots of multiple shapes, I can go into the menu for this line here, for this shape layer, and in the contents I'm going to add something called a replicator, a repeater, sorry, repeater. And I'm going to go into the transform properties, and basically the transform for the repeater is where the repeats happen. So you can see at the moment I've got 3 copies, okay, but they're only positioned over on the horizontal axis. But if I do it on the vertical, there we go, you can see there, you can see my bolt there starting to appear that I've already drawn. And so on the horizontal, I want that to be 0. Okay, so there we go. And on here, what I want is I want a number of copies, more copies than I need. Okay, and I'm just going to use the transform position to position it so that they're evenly spaced out, so that the bottom of one just touches the bottom of the screen. Okay, so now we've got a nice even set of lines, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go close that. Okay, that's okay, and go into the transform properties, not for the layer, that just moves the whole layer about. Okay, I'm going to go to the transform properties here in the contents for the line. So it's the transform for this first line that we drew. Okay, so that determines where the repeater starts from. So I'm going to position it up so it's back up off the screen. So we start on the so we started there, so I'm going to start on the second one and just add a keyframe. And then I'm going to come to say, let's say 2 seconds, and I'm going to move that down so it ends back where we began. Okay, so it's going to go like this. So we're back at the same place. Now what I can do with this is loop this. If I alt click on the stopwatch here and do loop out, okay, hit that, I'll cycle it. So now we get this. Okay, it carries on. And because I made the comp 10 seconds long and I put the loop point at 2 seconds, okay, it divides evenly. It goes 5 times into 10. So when we hit 10, we're going to go back to the start and it's just going to look like it's carrying on forever. So 10 seconds is a nice easy number to loop things with because it's easy to divide things into 10. Okay, so that's our background. So what I'm now going to do is take these two layers and pre-compose them. Okay, pre-compose, and I'll call it just BG, my little shortcut for background. Okay, and I'm going to put a mesh warp on this. Okay, and the mesh warp's going to let me, you see what it's going to do? I'm going to be able to distort this. Okay, so I'm going to just leave that for now. Okay, because I'm going to put the boat in the right place, and then I can distort this around the boat. But that's just there for later. Okay, and the reason I made it a pre-comp is that I'll be able to make this pre-comp 3D, so I can do that now, so that when we put a light on it, this background layer will accept shadows. Okay, so that's the background ready to go. Okay, so I've just hidden this. I've just used the shy guy here because I've got this other layer, which is the boat layer. So to make the boat, I started with simply just use the pen tool to draw, a shape, and so I did that earlier because to save time. But I've just drawn a very crude, simple shape. If you spend more time, you can do a better design, or maybe design it in Illustrator and do something really nice. But we're just going to do something very simple here. So I've just done a shape there. You can see I've just used the handles to get the curves. Just 3 points. Okay, making a basic outline of the boat. Okay, so I'm going to keep that. Open this up, and there's shape 1. So I'm going to duplicate this shape, Command D. Command D for duplicate. Open up shape 2, and I'm going to go to fill and use the eyedropper tool and fill it with the same colour as the background stripes. And then I'm just going to go to transform, just for the shape, not the bottom transform, which is the transform for the entire layer, and scale this down a little bit. So I've got my inner boat, and I can always take that, and if I want to just reshape it a little bit, I can. And I'm going to duplicate this bottom one again. So I'm going to go back into shape 1, Command D on that, move that just to the top, so it's the top layer, and then go to the transform for this shape and scale this down again so it's smaller, and I can also kind of reshape this a little bit, just playing it back. There we go. That will do. I'm just also going to add into here a little square, a little rectangle here. Just draw that, and I'm going to just make this of a red stroke, like so. Okay, just added a little bit of detail there to the boat, something like that. Okay, so that's my very basic kind of boat shape there. Alright, let's make that a little thinner, something like that. Okay, you can spend more time on this doing something nicer, but that will do for now. Okay, so that's the bottom of the boat. So I'm now going to do another shape layer, so everything I did inside this shape, so it's all one shape layer and easier to manage. So I'm going to click out of that, and now I'm going to go to my rectangle tool. I'm going to just choose the fill color and make it the same as this. Okay, and the mast I'm going to make a little darker, so I'm just going to bring the brightness down a bit on this and hit OK. And I'm going to start, let's say, drawing this mast like so, and I'm going to take off the stroke. Okay, and I'm going to take the anchor point of this layer, so I'll just sometimes click out and click back to get this little crosshair and move that. I've got snapping turned on at the moment. Okay, let me zoom in. you can see I can snap this with snappings on. If snapping's turned off and you want to snap, you can hold down the command on a Mac or the control on a PC as you move it about, and it'll snap to the edge. So just snapped it to that bottom edge. That's going to be our pivot point. Okay, so we've got that, and I'm going to draw another layer. Okay, so we need a little bottom layer too. So from here, I'm going to just draw out like so, and then I'm going to just use my pen tool and draw the mast. Something like this. Okay, and on the fill for this, to get that two colours, I'm going to alt click and choose the linear gradient. And what I can do there is, if I go back to my selection tool and just double click on this, or to bring this up, there you go. I've got this line here, sometimes hard to spot, but I can adjust the gradient so I can get it going across. Okay, I can have it where I want it. I can even swap it around. So I can have this nice kind of sail going. So I can play about with that, and in here, if you need to change, you know, where these occur, you can add more of a gradient. You can change where they blend. Okay, so that will do it. Okay, there we are. And on this shape, I'm just going to add wiggle paths. And just make this very slow. Wiggles per second, maybe 1 wiggle per second. And I'm going to change it to smooth. And the size, I'm going to make like a small size. So it's just slightly, just maybe 2 or 3. So it's just got a little wiggle on that sail. Just giving it a little blow in the breeze. So what I'm now going to do is make both these layers 3D. And I'm going to rename this one to sail. Okay. And I'm going to hit R on the sail layer. And on the Y rotation, I'm going to make it 90. Okay, 90. So it's at a right angle in our custom view. Switch to custom view. You can see there that the sail, that's a side view there at an angle. So you can see the sail is now upright. Okay, and to control this, because we've got a couple of layers here, I'm going to use a null object. I'm going to go layer, new, null object. I'm going to make that 3D. Okay, and I'm going to just parent both these layers to the null. Okay, so the null will be our controller, and I might just take both these and just move them so they're just kind of, so the null's just in the middle. Okay, so that null will now control the boat. And so what we need to do is just animate the null slightly. So if I go back to my custom view, I'm just going to take the null and just pull it up a little bit so it's just off. Okay, I can move this about to see it. So it's not quite on top. So if I take this, put it out, you see there's some little gap. That's so we can get a shadow, because you see on this one we've got a nice shadow under the bolt. So just a little bit of gap between the bolt, okay, and the background will give us our shadow. And we can use this null to kind of reposition it. And we need to just rotate this, so it's kind of at an angle. Okay, and I make the whole thing a little smaller. Okay, and we can just use these tools to move it about, just moving this null object with the handles. And we can use the rotation tool. I'm going to rotate it a little this way. Not too much. There we are. And so we can now sort of see our sails, and just going to go into this sail layer and just rotate that a little so it's on its Z, sorry, on its X, sorry, so it's kind of at more of a side angle. Even give it a slight little tilt down. There we are. That's starting to look good. Okay. So this could be our starting point. So on the null, I'm going to hit rotation, and I'm just going to add some keyframes, X, Y, and Z rotation. And I'm going to copy these keyframes, and I'm going to go to the end of the comp and paste them there, so that we always end up where we started, so that when it loops, we'll be back at square one and it'll look like it continues. Okay, then I'll maybe just go to sort of 2 seconds and have this bolt kind of just rocking a little bit, just adding some motion, so not too much, or else I'll get it dipping behind the background. But I could always pull it off the background a little more. Okay, there we are. So it's just so I'll just rotate it and just add a little bit of rotation. So just doing that, and then coming back the other way a bit, and just kind of just bobbing about. So I'm just adding some keyframes here, just about every couple of seconds, just getting it to rock about. So there we are. So it's just doing this. You can see there it's just dipping in a little bit there, so I'll just change that, and I can always go to my, just pull this up a little bit so it's further off the layer, so it doesn't go behind the background. That's fine, that's looking fine. Now I'm going to take all these keyframes, I'll just hold down shift, I can select them all there, and I'm going to make them animation and keyframe assistant easy ease, so it's just more smooth now as it bobs about. Okay, so now we've got this loop going. It looks like it just continues forever. So what we just need to do now is go back to our background layer and go to our mesh warp, and we can use this to distort this layer, give it some curves around the bolts, give it a kind of wave effect. We could even animate these a little. So let's just go and let's just do our, okay, let's just add a keyframe there for the distortion mesh, and let's just move it about a little. Let's just make that just kind of just kind of move it a little with the boat. Just give it a little bit of movement. Oops. And again, if you hit the U key there on this layer, I just want to make sure my last keyframe is the same as the first. Okay, so just a little bit of movement in that too. Okay, and I'm going to make the quality of this like highest. There we go. Give me the smoothest results. Okay, so we've got this going. Now to get the shadows, I just need to go, these are all 3D layers, so I can do a new light. I'm going to use a point light. I'm going to tick cast shadows and just have the shadow darkness quite low and some diffusion on that to soften the edges. Okay, now what I'm going to do is go to the boat layer, open up the material options. Okay, there it is at the bottom. Where it says cast shadows, I'm going to turn that on, so it gives us a boat. But where it says accepts lights, I'm going to turn that to off. Okay, so the boat remains the same colour but still casts a shadow. And I need to also do that for the sail. Okay, cast shadows on and accepts lights off. Okay, and also on the background, okay, accepts lights off. Alright, so now we've just got the shadow, and I can move the light about to change where I want the shadow to be. Oops. Oop, grab the wrong layer. Alright, so it can, there we go. So we got a shadow on the boat there. Looks quite nice. And there you have it. So that's our animated boat loop. Thanks for watching.